Problem number 1 on the final exam for spring 2015 is asking you to solve the integral of tangent x times secant cubed x from pi over 4 to pi over 3. So let's go through the solution for this. What I'm looking for when I have tangents and secants is I'm looking for some substitution for either u equals secant of x or u equals tangent of x. So in this case, I noticed that I do have a secant cubed x. Because this is an odd power, we want to focus mainly on this one. If I try to plug this in, I'll end up with an extra secant when I plug in my u and my du, which doesn't really work for me. I need to be able to take all the terms and condense them down into just forms of u. So by focusing on this one, I can derive it, and I can also get an expression for what my du should be. So I end up getting secant x tangent x dx. So now if I rewrite this integral, I have a secant cubed x, so if I need to account for this secant tangent, I can pull out one of the secants from here, as well as the dx, and I could easily write that as du. Now I would be left with a secant squared by itself after I do that substitution, so then I'm going to go ahead and plug in u squared. So now I can solve this integral. It's just a power function. So if I go ahead and solve this integral out, I end up getting u cubed over 3. And if I go ahead and plug back in for my value of u, I end up getting secant cubed x over 3. And that's going to be evaluated from pi over 4 to pi over 3. So now I have my boundaries and I have my integration, so I can go ahead and I can plug in and see what values I get. So the first thing I'm going to plug into is I'm going to plug in secant pi over 3, and that's going to be cubed all over 3, minus secant of pi over 4 quantity cubed over 3. So now I just need to evaluate these functions and see what I actually get. So secant of pi over 3, that's not on the unit circle, but I know that cosine is on the unit circle, and secant is just 1 over cosine. So let's figure out what cosine of pi over 3 is, and that way we can figure out what secant is. So cosine of pi over 3 is equal to, so if I think of my unit circle, that ends up being 1/2. It falls right at 60 degrees. So this is 1/2. So when I look back here, I end up getting 1/2 quantity cubed. Oh, well actually no, it's secant pi over 3. So I end up, to solve for this, secant of pi over 3 is equal to 2. Because that would just be the inverse of this, 1 over that. So this actually ends up being 2 cubed, which is 8. So this ends up being 8 over 3. Minus, I need to figure out now what secant of pi over 4 is. So again, I know that cosine of pi over 4 is equal to square root of 2 over 2. So that means that secant of pi over 4 is equal to square root of 2. So if I go ahead and cube that, I end up with 2 square root of 2. And the way I get that is if I have square root of 2 quantity cubed, that would be equal to square root of 2 times square root of 2 times square root of 2. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is equal to 2, and then I'm left with an extra 1 left over. So that's what I have on top, and I have a 3 on the bottom. So that ends up getting me the answer of A. 8 over 3 minus 2 square root of 2 over 3.
The Teaching Center, UF's Learning Resource Center.